AI is just, it's everywhere now, isn't it? Predictive text, streaming recommendations, all that stuff.
It really is. And there's so much noise around it. Information overload almost.
Exactly. So today, we're doing a deep dive. We've got a stack of sources here, and we're going to try and cut through that noise.
Sounds good. What's the focus?
We want to untangle the two kind of big categories, like generative and predictive AI.
The creators versus the forecasters.
Right. So the mission for you listening is to pull out the key nuggets. You know, what can they actually do? What can't they do? How do they work? And, well, what does it all mean for us?
Okay.
Because you've probably seen those wild images, right? Like a cow in a kitchen wearing a pink sweater. AI just makes it up.
Yeah, generated from nothing.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's one side.
But then you have the other side, AI trying to predict, say, where crimes might happen, or if a machine's about to break down.
That's the core distinction right there. Generative AI is all about creating new stuff. Text, images, music, you name it.
And it's getting incredibly good, incredibly fast.
It is genuinely remarkable. But, and this is important, as a product, it's still pretty immature, often unreliable, prone to misuse. Lots of hype around it, too.
Okay, and predictive.
Predictive AI makes forecasts about the future, designed to help us make decisions right now. But its limits. People often seem to overlook those.
Interesting. So limitations on both sides.
Definitely. We'll get into the tech behind them. They're surprising skills, but also their, well, sometimes troubling limitations.
And maybe even a look back at where some of these ideas came from.
Absolutely. Some foundational stuff that led us here is quite a story.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Generative AI, creating those visuals, the speech, music. What really sets it apart from predictive AI at a fundamental level?
Well, like you said, it excels at bringing new things into existence. Those photorealistic images, sure, but also really authentic sounding speech, original music. The progress is just incredibly fast.
But you mentioned reliability issues.
Yeah, exactly. For all its sophistication, it can still make mistakes that, honestly, a toddler wouldn't. Like, remember the early chatbots getting tripped up by simple logic?
Oh, like the feather versus rock weight question.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Sometimes focusing on the, superficial trickiness instead of the actual numbers. So the output can look amazing, but trusting it consistently, that's still a hurdle.
Okay, so that's generative. How does predictive contrast directly?
Predictive is all about looking ahead to guide action now. It's the AI asking, how many crimes might happen here tomorrow? Or what's the chance this machine fails next month?
Or even, how well is this job candidate likely to perform?
Exactly. It's built to inform decisions based on anticipation.
So if generative AI is still maybe a bit of a wild card, what about predictive AI in the real world? You mentioned overlooked limitations. That sounds like it could have serious implications, especially for high-stakes decisions.
That's a really critical point. One major limitation, according to the sources we looked at, is just how incredibly hard it is to accurately predict complex social behavior, human behavior.
Right. People aren't simple equations.
Not at all. And so taking these predictions, which are often inherently flawed, and using them to decide someone's life chances.
Like in policing or hiring?
Yes. Or even getting loans or services. It raises really profound moral questions. And our sources are quite clear. These kinds of limitations, they're not just going away anytime soon.
Can you give a specific example?
Facial recognition technology is a big one discussed in the material. It's known to be error-prone, especially for certain demographic groups.
Okay.
The sources highlight, and again, we're just reporting what's in the material here, that at the time they were written, there were at least 6 known cases of false arrests in the U.S. based solely on faulty facial recognition matches.
6.
And every single one of those cases, the person arrested was Black. It really underscores the ethical concerns and civil liberties issues around using this tech in law enforcement.
That's a stark example of the real-world impact of these limitations.
It really is.
Okay, so these are the modern challenges, but you mentioned looking back. To really get where AI is going, sometimes you need to see where it started. These ideas didn't just pop up yesterday, right?
Not at all. Some of the absolute core concepts go way back, mid-20th century even.
Like what?
Well, back in 1943, you had McCulloch and Pitts. They basically drew up the first blueprint for, artificial neurons.
Artificial neurons in 40s.
Yeah, simple on or off units. But they show how networks of these could compute functions, perform logic like and or not. They even suggested these networks could learn. That was foundational.
Wow. Okay.
And just a few years later, 1949, Donald Hebb comes along with a simple rule for how connections between these neurons could get stronger with use. We still call it Hebbian learning. It's all about how connections adapt.
So early ideas about learning networks.
Right. And then came things like perceptron's early attempts at classifiers. They were groundbreaking, but hit limits fast. Couldn't learn anything complex, only simple linear separations. A big early lesson. Linear wasn't enough.
So they needed something more.
Exactly. And things sort of stalled a bit until the early 1980s when John Hopfield introduced a really different kind of neural network, one that could actually remember.
Hopfield networks. Okay, that sounds important. How did they change the game? What was special about them?
Hopfield thought about memory differently. He modeled it as a stable system. Think of like a landscape with valleys. If you put a ball on the landscape, it rolls down into the nearest valley, stable state.
Okay.
Hopfield showed how a network of interconnected neurons could store patterns memories as these stable valleys. Then, if you gave the network a partial or noisy input, like a blurry picture,
It would sort of roll towards the closest complete memory.
exactly, it would settle into the stable state corresponding to the stored pattern it most resembled, retrieving the full memory from a fragment. That's associative memory.
Associative memory, like how one thought triggers another.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And what really got physicists and computer scientists excited was this idea of memory emerging from the collective dynamics of the network. It wasn't stored in one place, but distributed across the connections. It was a totally new way of thinking about information storage and retrieval in complex systems.
And does that connect to today's AI?
Absolutely. That idea of a system settling into a stable state, you see echoes of that in how modern generative models work, converging towards a coherent output, like an image or a paragraph. Hopfield's work really spurred research into these energy-based models and associative memory concepts.
It's amazing how far back these ideas go. It makes me think of Charles Babbage and his analytical engine in the 1800s.
Right, with its store for memory and mill for calculation.
Yeah, and Ada Lovelace's comment about it, weaving algebraic patterns just as the jacquard loom weaves flowers and leaves. Even then, this vision of machines generating complex patterns.
There's a direct lineage, in a way. These early concepts, artificial neurons, learning rules like Hebb's, memory models like Hopfield's, they all paved the way. They evolved into the much more complex neural networks and deep learning we rely on today.
Deep learning being.
Essentially, neural networks with many layers, deep layers, allowing them to learn and represent really complex nonlinear patterns in data.
Okay, so that bridges the gap. But what were the specific breakthroughs that took us from, say, Hopfield networks to something like ChatGPT or Gemini? Systems that can hold conversations.
Several key things converged. First, just the wider use and refinement of deep learning for what's called supervised learning training models on massive amounts of labeled data to classify things or make predictions.
Right. More data, more layers.
Exactly. But for language, the massive leap forward was the transformer architecture. That came out of Google research in 2017.
Transformers. Heard a lot about those. What was the magic there?
It was something called the self-attention mechanism. Essentially, it allowed every word in a sentence to pay attention to every other word, no matter how far apart they were.
So it understands context better, like linking she back to Alice even paragraphs later.
Precisely. Or figuring out if bank means a river bank or a financial bank based on the surrounding words. This gave models an unprecedented grasp of context. And crucially, this attention mechanism was highly parallelizable.
Meaning you could train much bigger models much faster.
You got it. It made training these enormous sequence models practical and more stable, which leads to the next big factor, scaling.
Just making everything bigger.
Pretty much. We saw this absolutely explosive growth in the size of language models, more parameters, trained on more data. And the scaling wasn't just incremental. It led to qualitatively new abilities, things the models weren't explicitly programmed to do, but just sort of emerge.
And the hardware kept up.
That was critical. The rise of GPUs, graphics processing units, and later TPUs, tensor processing units, these chips are designed for the kind of parallel math that neural networks need, making the massive computations feasible.
Okay, so deep learning, transformers, massive scaling thanks to new hardware. That paints the picture. But it brings us back to that paradox. These incredibly complex systems built on layers of breakthroughs, they still make basic errors sometimes.
They do.
Yeah.
Which, as you say, opens up that philosophical can of worms. How do they think? Do they understand?
Yeah, what do the sources say about that angle?
Well, it connects back to Alan Turing again. He talked about machines making errors of conclusion, basically, saying things that aren't true. Modern LLMs do that all the time. They hallucinate.
Right.
And there's a funny twist now with the Turing test or imitation game. Sometimes these models fail, not because they're not smart enough, but because they sound too perfect, too eloquent, not human enough. Or companies deliberately make them hedge or refuse certain queries to seem less human and prevent misuse.
Huh, okay. What about understanding meaning, intentionality?
That's the deep philosophical question of aboutness. Do these systems have internal states that genuinely represent things in the world the way our thoughts do? It's debated, obviously.
Obviously.
Some sources suggest we need what they call anthropocentric abstraction. Basically, stop asking if AI thinks exactly like humans. Instead, look for a more general blueprint of intelligence. How could any system, biological or silicon, develop states that carry content and connect to the world? It's about understanding the underlying principles, not just mimicking human specifics.
Hmm. Shifting perspective. Okay, moving from the philosophical to the practical, AI is weaving itself into society pretty deeply now. What are some of the big impacts we're seeing right now, according to the sources?
Oh, it's widespread. Take education. Tools like Khan Academy's Khanmigo are acting like AI tutors.
So,
They're designed not just to give answers, but to ask Socratic questions, figure out where a student is struggling, even explain why, say, cellular respiration matters for a football player's diet. Connect learning to their interest.
that sounds useful. And for teachers?
Big potential there, too. AI helping draft lesson plans, handle admin work, freeing up teachers for more actual interaction with students.
Okay. What about social media? That's full of algorithms.
Definitely. Recommendation algorithms drive so much of what we see. They can create a rich get richer effect where popular stuff gets amplified. And some apps are, well, designed to be addictive, pushing constant social comparison.
And who decides what's good anymore?
That's changing too.
Hmm.
Algorithms and the wisdom of the crowd are often replacing traditional gatekeepers like record producers, editors, critics.
Makes sense. What about the job market? That's a huge concern for many.
It is. The economic incentives for automation are strong. AI can often do tasks cheaper than ongoing human labor costs, so businesses are pushed to adopt it. This likely means major disruptions for workers as AI gets better across more domains.
A big shift coming.
Seems unavoidable. Then there's personalization. AI promises this dream of perfectly tailored products and services.
But does it deliver?
The sources suggest it often requires a lot of user effort. Think about curating your perfect Spotify playlist. The potential is there, but you still have to do the work to make it truly yours. It's not always automatic.
Right. And any other big societal impacts mentioned?
Yeah, there's growing discussion around AI colonialism.
AI colonialism, what does that mean?
It refers to concerns about how AI development and deployment impact communities in the global south. Things like scraping vast amounts of data without fair compensation or consent, and the environmental footprint, the huge energy and water needed for training these big models, which often disproportionately affects vulnerable regions.
Complex layers of impact there. Okay, this inevitably brings us to the big one, AGI, artificial general intelligence. Is this real? Is it sci-fi? What's the deal?
Well, AGI is generally defined as AI matching human intelligence across the board, not just in narrow tasks. Is it possible? Many experts in the field believe it's completely possible because human brains exist. We are proof that general intelligence is physically possible in the universe. So there's no fundamental law of physics preventing it in a machine, theoretically.
Okay, and if we get AGI...
Then the idea of superintelligence comes up. If AGI can start doing AI research itself, improving its own code exponentially, it could rapidly surpass human intelligence by orders of magnitude.
Right, the intelligence explosion idea.
Exactly. And the hypothetical futures presented in the sources range wildly, from, a utopia free from wanton work
Sounds nice.
to a world with a massive divide between the owners of this tech and everyone else. Or even, in the more extreme scenarios, human extinction.
Extinction, that's heavy.
It is. That's where discussions of existential risk come in. The risk isn't just job loss, but potentially extinction or irreversible power concentration or locking us into some kind of digital dystopia.
And that ties into the alignment problem.
Precisely. How do you design an AI, especially a superintelligent one, to have goals that align with human values and well-being? It's incredibly difficult, especially since humans don't even agree on all values.
Von Neumann's singularity idea fits here too, right? The point beyond which we can't predict.
Yes, he used that term back in the 50s for that post-superintelligence future where, as he put it, human affairs could not continue as we know them.
So where does the debate stand now? Are people freaking out or just building it?
Both. Kind of. You have figures like Eliezer Yudkowsky, a prominent researcher, calling for a total stop, a global moratorium on large AI experiments, enforced by military action if necessary, because he sees the risk is that high.
Wow, airstrikes. That's extreme.
It shows the level of concern from some quarters. On the other hand, you have CEOs of the major AI labs, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Anthropic signing statements saying that mitigating extinction risks from AI should be a global priority on par with pandemics and nuclear war.
But they're still building it.
But they're still building it, yes. The competitive pressures are immense. You also have figures like Elon Musk, who was involved in OpenAI's founding, partly out of fear of what Google DeepMind might build, voicing concerns about AGI getting out of control. He's even mentioned needing to escape to Mars as a potential backup plan.
Escape to Mars. Okay.
And internal documents and reports cited in our sources show struggles within these companies, like at OpenAI, over the mission versus profit motive, and this perceived race to get to AGI first, sometimes framed as a moral prerogative.
A moral prerogative to build potentially dangerous AI first.
That's the tension. And this isn't just about AGI. Remember the stochastic parrots paper controversy at Google?
Vaguely, remind me.
It was an internal paper by Google researchers raising alarms about large language models before they became ubiquitous. They warned about the huge environmental cost, the dangers of training on toxic internet data, how hard these models are to audit, and crucially, the risk of people mistaking statistically generated text for genuine meaning or understanding.
So internal dissent and warnings even then.
Exactly. It highlights that these debates and concerns aren't new and they exist within the very companies driving development.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, we've covered generative creation, predictive forecasting, the deep historical roots, the modern breakthroughs, the societal impacts, and this looming AGI question. What's the takeaway for someone listening to all this?
It paints a picture of incredibly powerful tools being developed at lightning speed, tools that can create, predict, and reshape our world in profound ways, but also tools with very real limitations, serious ethical blind spots, and the potential for unintended consequences, maybe even existential ones.
So in a world increasingly shaped by these powerful yet flawed intelligences, what skills become more valuable for us humans? If AI gets great at prediction, what's left?
That's a key question the sources touch upon. While AI excels at prediction based on data, human judgment remains critical, especially in novel situations where data is scarce or when ethics and values are involved. AI doesn't have values.
Right.
The ability to make analogies from limited information, to design experiments, to understand not just correlation, but causation. What those uniquely human reasoning skills become paramount. AI predicts. Humans judge and understand causality.
That makes sense. So as we use AI more, whether it's Cognigo for learning or some creative assistant, the focus shifts. It's not just about what the AI can do.
Exactly. It's about what we choose to do with it, how we integrate it, how we oversee it, how we adapt alongside it.
Perhaps the real deep dive then isn't just into AI, but into our own judgment, our critical thinking, our values, as these strange new kinds of minds evolve all around us.
That seems like a very good way to put it.
Okay, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep exploring.